Welcome
Welcome
to Inside Al Snow's Head.
Wait, stop the music for a second. Before this podcast gets going, guys, I want to let you know about a free t-shirt giveaway courtesy of Inside Al Snow's Head and collarandelbowbrand.com. Listeners, stop over to collarandelbowbrand.com and check out the awesome line of t-shirts that they have available. Pick out your very favorite and take a screenshot of that t-shirt. Then visit our Facebook page at Inside Al Snow's Head and find the status and post about contest for episode number 2. Like and share that post, and in the comments, leave that screenshot of your very favorite t-shirt and tag a friend who loves wrestling or who may love a free Collar and Elbow t-shirt themselves. After we've grown the Facebook page to over 800 likes, we're going to give away 2 t-shirts. We're going to pick 2 of those random comments, and the t-shirt that you selected is going to be yours free, courtesy of Al Snow, Inside Al Snow's Head, and collarandelbowbrand.com. Again, guys, visit collarandelbowbrand.com, pick out your favorite shirt, share the screenshot on our post, tag a friend, help us build the community, and once we get the likes to over 800, we're going to give away 2 t-shirts to 2 lucky listeners. Thanks for listening, and I hope you guys enjoy Inside Al Snow's Head. Play that music. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Jared Orr, and we are about to go inside Al Snow's head. Sitting down to get our second full episode out, I could not be any more excited. We had a ton of great feedback from the first episode. Went through about hundreds and hundreds of emails of people talking about how much they liked the show. After I deleted all the emails from my dad and Al's mom, we were down to dozens of emails of fans' comments. Without any further ado, our host, the man himself, Al. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, and it took a while for my mom to write all those emails. It's too bad that we had to delete them all, you know?
Well, I saved them in a special folder. My dad's also a 2-finger typer, but I saved them in a special folder for us to come at another time, but I wanted to get down to the nitty-gritty of the real listeners. So after the first episode, how you feeling? Did you get a little bit of feedback?
Yeah, and it was all positive. You know, my mom still thinks I'm handsome and a great kisser, and they seem to enjoy it. They find it interesting and entertaining.
Well, lucky for us, and that's what I kind of figured they would, and that's why we got this project
going.
You
completely missed it. You completely missed it. I thought you'd be faster than that.
Well, it was there's some things that are none of my business, so yeah, I just kind of moved right past that one.
You let that one slide right on by. That my mom thought I was a great kisser. You just let it go.
Hey, you know, it's one of my favorite Lampoon lines as well. You know, Daddy says I do it best. So we're coming off of Mother's Day. We had a big Mother's Day at our house. We had two flag football games, so my wife spent all day in the 90-degree heat. What was Mother's Day like in the Snow household?
We took my wife to the zoo, and that way she could, you know, see more of animals that look and act and behave like her children. So, you know, it was perfect.
Absolutely. We know that she is a huge animal lover, so a day at the zoo must have been awesome for her.
Yeah.
That first episode, like I said, we got a ton of feedback, and we certainly appreciate it all. Again, we can be followed at Twitter, at The Real Snow Show. Give us a like and a follow, any comments. We had some of your friends, Al, kind of tweeting out the show, and one that caught me off guard was Gene Okerlund, who you can follow at Mean Gene Hotline on Twitter. And Gene Okerlund said, my lifelong friend. How do you know Gene Okerlund, Al?
You know, I've known Gene for years through WWE, and Gene is he is such the epitome of class, and in such a professional, you know, such an awesome human being. I mean, he's just a terrific person. He really is. If you ever get the chance to meet him, if he's doing an appearance, trust me, you'll do yourself a big favor by, you know, going and meeting him and talking to him. He's an awesome individual.
Well, again, just a fan and growing up as a fan in the business, but still trying to play it cool and be professional. I totally tried to play it cool when I saw Mean Gene Okerlund retweeting the show, and tried not to mark out too much. I went in a closet and did it so nobody saw, but I was really excited to see that, and thought that was really cool. I didn't realize that you and Mean Gene were good friends. So we got a ton of emails and questions and stuff that fans want to know, and there's a ton of topics that we've discussed that we're going to go over, but there's no reason in going past these. The fans are letting us know what they want to talk about, and whether it be on our Facebook page, Inside Al Snow's Head, or the Twitter page, again, at The Real Snow Show, a ton of fans' questions came in, and I thought, let's take some time to get to know Al and address these again. What do you think, Al?
Oh, yeah, I love questions from the fans, and I always encourage them to ask any question they want to ask. The only dumb one's the one they don't ask. So
absolutely. Well, we got a ton of them, so we're going to go over a couple of them right now, and one is going to come from Chris, who actually sent a question in our Facebook page, and he's asking about the fallout between CM Punk and I guess the hierarchy in WWE, or how they would say that is. And I guess with the bottom line of what he's trying to get to is, do you think that we'll ever see CM Punk in a WWE ring again?
I think anything is possible. I don't think it's not a done deal where it will never happen. The one thing about Vince McMahon is that Vince always cares first and foremost about business. If he thinks that he can do business and utilize CM Punk as an attraction, and CM Punk is interested and willing to come in and do business, then I guarantee that CM Punk will be back in a WWE ring. That's what it comes down to, because as far as Vince is concerned, he's not going to hold a grudge. He's not going to say, well, you know what, I'll never use him again, or for whatever reason. He will always make an opportunity for those that he thinks that he can do business with and utilize in a manner to draw money.
Absolutely, and CM Punk obviously was a huge draw for years and years in WWE, and would continue to be a draw if he didn't walk away. Fans are still chanting for him to this day. You actually trained a little bit with CM Punk, correct?
When CM Punk was in the developmental program, I was in charge of, was the head trainer for developmental program here in Louisville at OVW. He was here and helped work with him and go through putting some of the finishing touches and help polishing him up and getting him ready for his opportunity with WWE.
Did you know that you were working with somebody that was going to be a future WWE champion for over 400 days?
You don't know that at the time. I mean, you of course want to do everything you can to help everyone succeed and live up to any possible potential that they could have. You want to do that as much as you can, because like I would always tell them, it's not an altruistic thing. It's not like it's not selfish on my part. The more that the trainees would turn out from the developmental program and go on to be successful and be stars in WWE to any degree, the better it made me look. And, quite a few of those people that were there at that time went on to have great runs in WWE. Armando Estrada, CM Punk, Beth Phoenix, Maurice is still there, Miz, Alicia Fox is still there, Cody Rhodes, Ryback, Santino Marella, quite a number of guys. Crime Time, Chad and JTG. A lot of those guys and a lot of that talent I was instrumental in getting hired, getting an opportunity with a developmental contract, and then that they were able to take that opportunity and then take it up there and have a run up there. Deuce and Domino with Cherry. The list continues of people that were there in OVW that went to WWE and had some type of successful run.
Cherry from Deuce and Domino was just a guest on Why It Ended with Matt Coon and Robbie E. And Al Snow will actually be appearing on that show coming up this week as well, so give them a follow. A ton of people that you trained, and we're going to have a full episode, a talk about some of the people that you trained, but while we've got it here right now, was there ever one person that you were training or you trained with or you saw come through and you thought, yep, they're going to be big? Was there somebody that you really had high expectations for, whether they lived up to them or not?
there were guys that you could see the potential for, and you would assume because they had all of the tools to do exactly that. But there's no guarantees. I mean, take for instance, there was a young guy. I worked with him in Tough Enough 4, and then they put him under developmental deal, which rightfully so. I mean, his name was Daniel Rodimer. He's probably 6'6", probably 350 or whatever, blonde, built, had this heel charisma, could talk, but they rushed him along, put him in too high, in the wrong spot too early with too many expectations that he didn't have the experience to deliver on. Ultimately, he got released. Now he's running for state senate in Nevada, and has a really good chance of winning. His life has taken a whole nother direction. So, he had all the tools, and it didn't pan out for a variety of reasons. But then there's other people that you can see the potential. It's not as obvious, and then they go up and they have an awesome run.
You had a question that came in, and they specifically were kind of asking about this in this situation about training and getting into wrestling, and a lot of those came up. And one of the questions that came up was, do you have to watch wrestling and be a fan of wrestling to be good at wrestling? And I think I know what your answer to this is going to be, but
you don't have to be necessarily a fan of wrestling to be good at it. But if you want to be a star and you want to be successful, then you need to have a passion for it. You could have all the talent, you could have all the physical ability, you could have all the athletic ability, the height, the size, the muscularity, the charisma, the ability to talk on the mic, you name it, you could have it all. But if you don't have a passion that really drives you to want to do this, you're not going to succeed. And I've seen plenty of guys and girls who had every other tool in the book and then go up, and then just fail miserably because they just did not have a real, true desire to live the lifestyle. It's being a wrestler, and this will sound like I'm, because, I've been a wrestler for 36 years. And so as a result, it's going to sound like I'm putting myself over when I'm really not. I'm just, quite honestly, being very honest, being very direct, and that is that it's a tough physical, mental, and emotional way to make a living. You're on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and especially when you get to a level like WWE, now it is so ultra competitive that in the locker room that the very, very same people that you share a camaraderie with and that you are friendly with are also competing with you. And if you have even 30 seconds of television time, there are an entire roster of talent that want that 30 seconds and feel they deserve it just as much, if not more, probably, than you. So for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you are constantly trying to think 2 to 3 moves ahead. You're constantly playing chess. You're constantly playing poker, never quite showing your cards, always trying to think several steps beyond and before your opponents do. And you got to live under the stress and pressure that you're only as good as the last time you performed. So every time you go out there, every single time, when you go out on a live event, you're in front of thousands of people. And if you don't kick a goal in the World Cup of Soccer, if you don't hit a home run in the World Series, if you don't get a touchdown in the Super Bowl, you might not get another chance to do it. Now, it gets even worse when you got to do it on pay-per-view, because now it's thousands of people live. It's millions of people around the world. And your boss, Vince McMahon, is sitting right there watching you at the monitor and evaluating and judging. And every other guy in that locker room is doing the same. Now, Monday comes and you got to do it all over again. And then Tuesday comes. And then Wednesday, if you have the day off, you're still worrying evaluating what you did and how you need to use it to parlay to where you'll be able to do it again on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of the coming week. And that never ends, never stops. So if you don't have the passion to do it, you don't have the real driving desire to do it, don't bother, because it's gonna crack you.
So if I'm listening to this right now and I'm a young guy and I think to myself, I have the passion, I'm in good shape, and I want to become a professional wrestler, real talk, what's their step? What should they do right now?
Well, the first thing they want to do is they're going to want to find a established and reputable place to train with, and here's the key, with trainers who have genuine, real experience. Not just, oh, they're really good. Oh, they can, they've been wrestling for a year or two. I mean, people that have been doing it and have been doing it, making a living, no matter what the level, trying to use it to pay their bills because they have a completely different understanding of what it's going to take to succeed. And they have been out there, they have made mistakes, and as a result of making those mistakes, they have experience that they can now communicate to you what to do and what not to do to really fully take advantage of any opportunities that might come your way. Whereas opposed to if you got somebody that's just, they're really good in the ring, well, they're going to be able to, teach you, the moves and things like that. But let me tell you something, the moves and the physical activity in the ring, that is the least important thing. It's knowing when and why to do what you've been taught in the ring to get the maximum effect emotionally from an audience, and then that motivates them to want to pay to see you again. It's knowing all the ins and outs backstage and the understanding of what the business is really about and what you're there to hopefully use to achieve your goals. Knowing what your goals are, understanding why those should be your goals, all of those things. And you can't get that information from just anybody who throws on a pair of trunks and a pair of boots and calls themselves a wrestler. It's not that simple. It's unfortunate, but and I truly believe, and I'm not knocking anybody, but I believe that the plethora of wrestling schools out there now are what has led to the degradation of the wrestling business. It is far too easy for a person who decides that they want to be a professional wrestler to just pick up and go, hey, you know what? Guess what? I'm going to go and become a professional wrestler. And I'm going to pay my money to the state athletic commission. I'm going to get a license. I'm going to go train at my buddies or this guy or whoever who have opened up a school, and bingo. A month later, I'm wrestling on a show. It shouldn't be like that. It should not be that easy. We as wrestlers devalue ourselves and our wrestling business when we make it so open and accessible and easy to enter, because nobody really has to earn their way in, and it becomes the blind leading the blinder. I remember a conversation Tim Horner had with, he was a wrestler in Atlanta and in the southern states, and Tim was talking about he had a conversation at that time. This was several years ago, but it hasn't changed. It's actually become more exacerbated. That he had a conversation with the guy that owned highspots.com at the time, saying one of the number one sellers that he had on his website were rings and title belts. Because what would happen is a guy would buy a ring, get title belts, start promoting, open up a school because he'd rent a building, start training people, and then somebody there in the school would decide, get butt hurt, decide they wanted to be a champion, why they couldn't win, or whatever. There'd be a falling out, or they'd determine that they now know enough as much as what the guy that trained them, and they'd decide, well, I'm going to buy a ring, buy some title belts, I'm going to start running my own shows, and I'm going to rent a building, and I'm going to open up a school. And so the guy that was training them may have had some general understanding of what he was teaching and why he was teaching it, but now the guy that's learned it from him has even less of an understanding or true knowledge, has very little, fewer, even less experience. He's now going to go teach somebody. So it's the blind teaching the blinder, and it just goes down and it goes down and it goes down. And I really think, for the sake of the wrestling business, it should go back to where the one thing that was the hardest thing to do in professional wrestling was just to get in it. When I broke in 1982, I would tell guys all the time, it was easier to become a made man in the mafia than it was to become a professional wrestler back then. And the reason why was because if you trained anybody, you were held personally accountable for anything they did in the wrestling business. And that accountability has gone by the wayside. People are not being held responsible for the mistakes of the people that they bring in, and therefore people show up, and it's gotten to where I see wrestling schools, which should, quite honestly, in my opinion, be treated no different than any other university or trade school whatsoever, being treated like it's a health club. Like, you pay X amount of money per workout, as opposed to, if you were to go and you wanted to be an accountant, you'd have to pay your tuition to attend a certain college. You'd have to follow a certain curriculum. There'd be a teaching syllabus for each of your classes, and you'd have to learn certain information in a certain preset order over a certain number of credit hours to where you would then finally be able to graduate. And one of the biggest things would be your professors would have had real world experience with that information that they were giving you, because then they would actually have the knowledge that they would be trying to teach you, not just communicating information. And, the wrestling schools aren't treated like that anymore. And that's unfortunate. But to finish your question, I apologize that I'm going on for so long.
No, please.
But once you've determined and found a reputable school with with experienced trainers, then you have to make a conscious decision that you're going to invest time, money, and effort in yourself. If you're not willing to invest time, money, and effort in yourself, there is no way that you can ever expect a promoter to invest his time, money, and effort in you. And you certainly cannot, in any realistic fashion, expect that an audience is going to invest their time, money, and effort in paying to see you. If you approach it like, like it's a hobby or it's a pastime, then you're going to get those kind of results. And to be quite honest, you shouldn't be utilized in any fashion whatsoever in the wrestling business, because the first part of professional is profession. It's not a hobby. It's not a joke. It's not a pastime. It's a job. And it requires you to be a professional, which means that you need to commit. You can't be half pregnant. You're either in or you're not. And if you don't want to do it and really do it, don't get in it, because you don't live in a bubble in the wrestling business. Unfortunately, crap rolls uphill in the wrestling business as much as it does down. And your poor appearance, your poor gear, your poor outfit, your poor professionalism, your poor approach to what you do and the art of professional wrestling now smears all over us, all over everyone. And all of our efforts and all of our work and time and investment is less for it because of the fact that you don't. But that comes down to, that's not just the fault of the wrestlers that are getting into it, but also the promoters that are booking these guys and just accepting that, oh, well, he's a body and he's got a pulse and we'll stick him in the ring. There have to be some kind of standards set at some point by some people, and I don't mean, listen, don't misunderstand or take my words and twist them around and say, well, every guy's got to look like a bodybuilder. I don't mean that at all. I mean that you need to be able to convince an audience when you walk through that curtain that you make your living competitively in an athletic combat situation, because that's what we're selling, that you are a professional prize fighter, not some slob who just walked off the street, that the audience feels like they could kick your ass. You need to look like and carry yourself like you could kick theirs, or you could definitely make them believe that you could kick the guy in the rings that you're facing. or the girls. And if you can't do that, do yourself a favor. If you've got cable television, tune in to Raw, SmackDown, Ring of Honor, name the company that's on TV, tune in, watch an episode, then buy yourself a full-length mirror and go walk past it with your shirt off. Do you look like that you just saw on TV? And if the answer is no, check that reality.
Well, how many of us, there's plenty of us out there that look exactly like Kevin Steen or Kevin Owens when we walk past the mirror.
But you have to be able to be presented in a manner that makes me believe that you can now compete in a fight type situation, a competitive, combative situation as a prize fighter. Now, I'm not judging Kevin Owens, and he must work, I guess, for WWE and for their fans. But, and you can always have the exception. Again, I'm saying you don't have to look like a bodybuilder. You don't have to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. You just have to make me be able to believe that you are able to compete in a combative situation as a prize fighter.
Now, let me say, I'm a Kevin Owens fan. I think he does great work in the ring, and so I'm not taking anything away from him at all. I think he's a good character, and I think he does some really cool things in the ring. I'm just saying that he looks like he should be sitting in the fourth row, hanging out and watching it, and he gets in there and makes it happen. So I guess and you said it, there is certainly an opportunity for anybody as long as you can be presented to be believable. So,
well, but listen, even back in the day, there were wrestlers that they didn't, Dick Murdoch comes to mind, but he legitimately probably one of the toughest human beings on the planet. But he carried himself. He came across and with Kevin Owens, as long as he carries himself and comes across like that you can be able to suspend your disbelief and buy into the fact that this guy can go out there and compete with. Tank Abbott is a good example in UFC. There was another fighter too. It was kind of a heavier fighter, heavier looking, but the way he carried himself, the way he fought, you could buy into the fact that he could actually be competitive in there. And he was.
Well, we certainly had that era of Bam Bam Bigelow, King Kong Bundy, one-man gangs. The American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, was certainly never winning a Mr. America contest, but all of them were believable and great in the ring in their own way. I hear so much about how much the business has changed and how different the wrestling business is, and I know that this is you're going to be able to take this and run with it. And I hear so much about it. Is the business really that much different today than it was when you broke in 36 years ago?
There are aspects of the wrestling business that have changed. Yes, certainly. But has the wrestling business, like when people say, oh yeah, it's changed, majority of them are usually saying that as an excuse or justification to be able to basically not really go out there and truly work in the ring and work an audience. And what do I mean by that? Well, because what you're trying to allow an audience to believe in and buy into, that thing has never changed. You're trying to give an audience the ability to buy into or believe, even if it's just during the time that they're in the building, that they're watching a prize fight. They're watching a competitive situation where the outcome is not predetermined and therefore has a consequence, has gravity to it. It means something for your guy to win or lose, because it's the only consequence that can happen from anything that occurs in the ring. We're not just selling that we are hurt. We're selling the idea, we're communicating to the audience that that move or that hold, that bump that we just took might be the thing that might lead us a step closer to losing, being defeated. And as the person who does the move, we've got to sell the idea, the belief that that move, that bump, that hold might be the very thing that leads us a step closer to winning. And that's what the story revolves around. And that hasn't changed. From the moment that they made the outcome quote unquote fake or predetermined, knowing that what the outcome was based on what business would be derived from it, everything within the ring, outside the ring, outside the ring, leading up to what you do in the ring, including promos, vignettes, character development, going through the curtain, getting in through the ring ropes, the ring of the bell, the presentation of the referee, etc. Every bit of that was to sell that outcome meant something, that it had some gravity and consequence. And that has not changed. Because if it has changed, if the audience, and I've asked this several times of people directly, and I've asked them on social media, if that has changed, like people say, quote unquote, the wrestling business has changed, that the audience no longer pays to show up at a show and watch and care about who wins and loses. They only show up to watch the physical execution of moves, of the athletic ability, of those oh holy crap moments that occur during the match. That's all they care about. And they only care about the characters. It's all a soap opera now. Because they all know it's fake, which this might be a surprise, but people have known it's been fake for decades, that it's been predetermined. So they only show up, though, just to enjoy the physical aspect. If that's the case, then number one, why do we still pay referees and have them in the ring when they don't really serve any real purpose anymore? If they're only there and the fans don't really care, they don't care if somebody about the win and loss. They don't care about anything other than watching the physical performance. Then why do we pay the referees? Why do we even have them in the ring? Second, if it's true that wrestling truly has changed, why do we still have titles? What are people trying to win and achieve and go up a ladder for when everybody knows and nobody really genuinely emotionally invests or cares about that? They're coming just to see the athleticism, the physical ability. And biggest question, if the people who tell me this, which are always the wrestlers themselves and those within wrestling, tell me this all the time, wrestling business has changed. You're old school, like there's a new school, like you've suddenly reinvented the wheel. It's no longer round, it's now octagonal or hexagonal. You've made it a new shape. Congratulations. But if you've successfully done that, then please explain to me that when I, as the promoter or booker, come to you and I go, Jarrett, I need you to lose tonight. Why do you get a boo-boo face? Why do you get upset? Why do you get pouty and you get dejected, or you don't want to do it, or you don't want to lose the way that I want you to lose? What does it matter? According to you, things have changed. But the audience, they don't care about that. It really doesn't matter. So why do you care?
How much of that actually happens? Is there
All the time.
talent?
All the
Is there
time.
talent? Can you tell Vince McMahon or whoever Pat Patterson, whoever you were dealing with backstage at the time, could you say, no, that I'm not doing that? Was that an
Sure.
option?
Yeah, it's always an option. I always recommend that you don't just come out and say no. You always have a how about this. You identify or understand what it is they're trying to achieve with that loss, and you go, well, how about this? How about we go about it this way, and we'll still get what you want done, but we'll do it in this manner. And you always try to compromise or work out some kind of detail that allows you to, still get it done, but in a way that you feel comfortable doing it. But at the end of the day, if they want it done a specific way, you can say no, but then it might reflect on future opportunities, because they're going to realize that they can't do business with you, because if they invest time, money, and effort in you, and it comes time to pay that time, money, and effort off to go in another direction, you're not going to want to do it, or do it the right way, or do it to where it suits their needs or fits their purpose, then they're reluctant to do it again.
What's more important to a wrestler, and I guess it's not fair to say to a wrestler, when Al Snow was in the WWE, if Vince would have came to you and said, Al, for the next year, I can double your pay or I can make you the WWE champ, which one would you have went with?
Well, definitely double the pay, but the reason they would make you the champ is so that you would be more of an attraction to where that would double your pay.
Sure. I just wonder, you hear that people talk about all the time, guys, like people have said champions like Bret Hart, it was more important holding the belt than it was making money to him. Is that a thing? I mean, do you care about being the champ when you're, and I know of course you do because it means that they've got the faith in you and they're going behind you, but as far as having the belt goes, does that matter?
Having the belt to me doesn't matter. What matters is by giving it to me, they have shown that they have faith in me and believe that I can carry it and carry the company, and be an attraction that will draw money. And that means more to me than the just having the title itself. The title's it's a prop, it's a gimmick, it's a tool. And there are some talents that they don't need it. They can be an attraction and be that type of attraction on that level without the title. And then there are those talents that that giving them that title belt elevates them, cements them and makes them more of an attraction, or makes them the attraction that you were hoping that they would be. And it serves a lot of different purposes. And so but of course there's the fan in you that wants to be the champion, because it's cool. You get to be the champion, and that's on your resume from there on out. But from a professional standpoint, you look at it like it's an investment and a belief in you that the company is making, and a confidence that they think that you can carry that, as that title is a representation of the company and all the hard work and effort of everyone else there. You're at the top of the mountain, and then now that's a reflection on everyone else that's climbing up that mountain to get to you. And that's why they got to be careful who they pick.
And I think that that's one aspect that, and smart fans and fans that really love the business obviously understand this, but people from the outside who are just casual or maybe not fans at all, they think, oh, you're the champion. What difference does that make? It's a fake belt. It's a fake thing. But it means a lot more than that inside. It means that, like you said, that this is the guy, this is who we're going with, this is the face of the company. And there's a lot that weighs onto that. How incredibly competitive was that locker room that you were a part of during that Attitude Era that had The Rock and Austin and Triple H and The Undertaker and the Big and the names just go on and on? Was it tense at times, knowing that you had at any given time 5, 6, 7 bona fide world champions?
Oh, it's always been that way, and it always will be that way. Even I'm sure to this day, it's much that way, that you're going to have that constant competition. And I mean, I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that if you got 30 seconds of television time, there's an entire roster of guys all back there wondering why and what they need to do to get that 30 seconds away from you and for them, because they feel they deserve it more. So and that pressure of that performance, it gets worse the further you go up the card. And the more you are, the higher level matches, the more you've got to lose, and the pressure goes up, exponentially, all because of the fact that you're just continuing to have more and more and more, that all it takes is one mistake and to lose. Doesn't matter what you did last year. Doesn't matter what you did last month. Doesn't matter what you did last week. Doesn't matter what you did last night. What matters is, were you able to deliver that time, that night, that time, in that ring, on that show? If you weren't, now they can take it, use it as ammunition, and create a perception Maybe you aren't capable of carrying that ball, even if it's on just the level you're on. And now you might take a step back. And if you can't overcome that step back and go back up again, you might take another step back, you might take a step away, you might disappear. And all based off of one mistake.
Is it much different in the locker room now? I feel like when you, in your time, in your era, you guys held each other more accountable, I would think, and from the stories that I hear, because your paycheck depended on the top of that card as well as everybody else's in the locker room did. Where today, with the guaranteed money, it's a little bit different. Everybody's getting paid no matter what. What world champ did Al Snow do the best working with? What was your best time? Who had the head?
Well, Steve Austin was probably the best because he had a hell of a run. So business was going crazy. It was booming. Everybody was making money. And again, you don't live in a bubble. And when WWE was making money, all up and down the wrestling business, WCW, ECW, all of the independents, the wrestling business was up, and it was up for everyone, not just for WWE. When WWE's doing great and doing booming business and great attendance, it trickles down. Everybody else does too, as well,
Absolutely, and you see the difference, and people go out to these shows. You just saw the All In indie event just sold 10,000 tickets in under a half an hour.
Oh,
they
yeah.
have a bunch of huge names. Yeah, that's huge for them, and that's also it's big
great for the wrestling
business.
business. It's great for the wrestling business. That's it's awesome.
Absolutely. More exposure and opportunities, some guys that are making money outside of the WWE name. I think it's great. I think it's going to be a great event for fans and for people to check out. Let's get back to a few of these fan questions here because we have a ton of them, and there's no way we're even going to be able to cover them all today.
Sure.
Jenny wants to know, why did Jim Lancaster name you Snow?
Well, Jim Lancaster didn't name me Snow. I basically picked that name out myself, and the reason I did was that when I was growing up, my best friend was African American. His name was Victor Lewis, and we were inseparable from kindergarten on. And I spent a lot of time over in his neighborhoods, and a lot of times I'd be the only white kid there, and they'd all that was where the name came from. They'd call me Snowy or Snow White or Snowman or basically just breaking my balls, just laughing,
Sure.
messing with me. But it kind of stuck. And then that was, decided I would call myself Al Snow when I started wrestling.
And here we are 36 years later. How difficult is it to not be Al Snow all the time?
It's not hard now. It used to be difficult, but I learned a valuable lesson. I used to ride with Sandy Scott. Sandy Scott was one of the Scott brothers. His brother was George Scott, who both of them worked in the office for Crockett Promotions for Jim Crockett in the Carolinas, and George Scott went on to be the booker for Vince McMahon in the '80s when business was red hot up there, and Sandy worked with Jim Cornette as like the road manager agent for Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and I got to travel with him a lot, spend a lot of time with him. And I remember we had a conversation, and we were discussing the fact that a dear friend of mine, Brian Hildebrand, and we would, any free time we had, we would watch wrestling videos. This was back when they were just VHS tapes, didn't have YouTube, didn't have the internet, back in the dark ages. We would watch wrestling videos all the time, different wrestling promotions. We were, if we had an opportunity, we were watching wrestling, old shows, old TV, new matches from Japan, Mexico, you name it, because we were just fans of it and we loved it. And Sandy would always just get up and leave the room. And I'm like, Sandy, you don't watch wrestling? And he goes, no. And I go, you don't watch it when you go home? He goes, God, no. I go, why? He goes, because I don't want to let it become, it's what I do. I don't want it to ever become who I am. And that's a dangerous thing to do, is that you invest so much time and so much of yourself into it that it's easy to let it become who you are and not just what you do. And you walk that line, and it's easy to get lost in your gimmick, because your gimmick is not a character. You're not an actor. It's a part of you. It's your personality, but just with the volume turned way up. And, you've got to be so careful, because it becomes who you are. You can never shut it off. You begin to alienate those that are close to you. And the business itself will eat you alive. I mean, it will just chew you up and spit you out, because it'll be you. It'll consume you. You won't be able to survive.
That all makes perfect sense. And I always wondered, and I remember the first time I sent you mail, I told you that we sent it out to Al Snow, and it just didn't even dawn on me that that is a gimmick and a character name that you have, and not your real name, but it's just one of those things. You've been Al Snow for so long that I always wonder to myself, does it become difficult to not be Al Snow? So there we go. Well, I want to talk about our friends over at Sensible Meals. Now, Al, I know you were a fan of them before the podcast even got going, and now all of our listeners can get on board with Sensible Meals. They get these perfectly portioned meals for whatever their eating or dietary needs are by using the code ALSNOW. They could save $20 off of a 4-week plan. They have sensible meal plans set up for weight loss, specific for men and women. They have plans set up for new moms who are maybe still breastfeeding. They've got paleo, sugar, gluten, dairy free.
Yeah.
You could check those out on Facebook and Twitter, Sensible Meals, and their website, eatsensiblemeals.com. And Al, you're actually eating Sensible Meals now, aren't you guys?
I am, and I got to tell you, and then this is, if this weren't the truth, I wouldn't say it. I mean, they're so convenient because they show up at your house fresh. They're all freshly prepared. You put them in the freezer, you take them out, you put them into the microwave. It takes you like a minute, heat them up, and they're delicious. They're real food. They're not, some manufactured or processed food. They're real, genuine food. They taste delicious, and they are perfectly portioned to whatever your goals are, and they work great. I cannot say enough good things about them. I mean, I love them, and I'm so glad that I am able to get them and be able to use them, because Sensible Meals, I cannot say it enough. If you have a fitness goal, or if you have a weight loss goal, this is the intelligent way to do it. Instead of doing one of those fad diets, this will change your eating habits for the better. Not only also for your dietary, for weight loss, but also for your health. It will do amazing things.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if you're on a diet now, or if you've been thinking about wanting to start a diet, or again, if you just want to make healthier choices at the table, but you don't want to give up those comfort, good tasting foods like macaroni and cheese, and they've got that Nutella topped waffle, then they can visit Sensible Meals. They can use the code ALSNOW. They can get themselves a little bit of deal. They can get themselves a little bit healthier at the table, and they can also help support this podcast. Rod Hicks wants to know, why do people drive on a parkway and park on a driveway?
I don't know. I really don't. Why is it called a garden in England and it's called a backyard in America?
Why do some people's feet smell and their noses run?
I don't know. I really don't.
All right. Well, there we go, Rod. Thanks. We appreciate your contribution.
Yeah. Thank you for your highly intelligent question, Rod Hicks.
Absolutely. So we've got a few questions here about OVW, and I know that you're just getting going. You guys had a pretty big event this weekend at OVW, right?
Yeah, we had a monthly event, Saturday night specials that are ran there at the arena. It had great attendance again for this one. Things went, really, really good. I was there at hand and, helping to direct and produce and age at the matches, and then give critiques on when they were done. And, the talent did a great job of creating key moments that I was looking for and serving the purpose of the match to be able to now sit down tonight and write TV and be able to tell stories going forward.
And know how much you love the business and how much you love talking about it and working on it. So you must really be excited to have this going as well as you want it to go. And fans are asking a lot of questions. Is OVW going to be hitting the road anytime soon? I've got a lot of people asking if we're going to see OVW in Ohio and some of the surrounding places from Louisville.
Those will be my goals. My goal is to build it back up to where it once was. When I was the head coach for the developmental program the last year before WWE severed ties and took everybody to Tampa, we had ran 186 live events. 52 of those were the television tapings, which meant that we ran 134 events. We went northeast up into Cincinnati. We went west into Owensboro, Kentucky, south to London, Kentucky, and anywhere in between. I'm hoping that I can take these opportunities to expand the reach of our television. I'd love to go as far as Huntington, West Virginia, up into Cincinnati again, down into Bowling Green and Kentucky and, Nashville and Knoxville and Tennessee and, London, Kentucky, Owensboro, and create a functioning territory like we once had. For the majority of the time, we'd have TV on Wednesday and then live events on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of every week. At a bare minimum, I want to get it back to operating at that level.
Well, it certainly seems like there's a call for it, and I can tell you guys one way to get it, and that's to visit ovwrestling.com. Follow them on Twitter, Ohio Valley Wrestling. Check them out on Facebook. Like it, share it, and leave comments, and let Alan, the guys over at OVW, know where you want to see OVW action, and I'm sure he'll see if he can't get it lined up in the future for you.
Oh, yeah.
We got a bunch of questions here about the connection between OVW and the WWE, and one question that came in from Ben, he asked about how you felt from the WWE transitioning their developmental contracts from the old OVW into their own current NXT system. Was that something that you knew was going to be happening, or were you a part of OVW when that happened?
I didn't know NXT. That they had moved everyone down from OVW down to Tampa at that time.
FCW?
FCW. And, the severed relationships, with OVW and also Deep South at that time. And, you could see the handwriting on the wall and see that was occurring. And that was their decision and their choice. And, and that was the direction they went, which then it evolved into
the whole NXT program,
and
television
program
show and brand.
Yeah,
good for them. It worked out well for them, and OVW's still standing up and going strong. Like we said, you've got that 1,000th episode coming up later this year, so it seemed like it worked out okay for everybody involved. And the OVW brand, like I said, is you're doing what you can. We've got a ton of questions about OVW. Guys, let me just tell you, I got a ton of questions about does Al want to do this? Does Al want to do that? And again, I know we just kind of got into it. You're just kind of getting a hold of this thing. And I think you've kind of mentioned before that you're open to anything that makes sense for business and anything that will help grow your brand and grow the business pretty much, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm very much all into doing anything I can to create the best possible platform that I can to allow the wrestlers, both men and women, to make themselves into stars and into an attraction for OVW. And then also everything I can to create opportunities, as many opportunities in as many places as I can, then take advantage of and exploit the talent, making themselves into stars and attractions. And that's how the wrestling business operates.
Well, you've got some strong talent in OVW right now, and people are really enjoying this, obviously, and fan base is quite large based on all the questions that we got about it. We're going to break off to something else here. John wants to know about your time on Tough Enough, and I guess what he really is asking is, how organic was Tough Enough, and how much of it was a WWE television show, I guess?
Well, it was very much a television show. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. I mean, it clearly was. But the thing is that it was a reality television show at the onset of reality TV. At that time, really all they had was, I think, was Survivor, and they had the Real World. And the concept of Tough Enough, kind of incorporating the two was like a brand new concept. They have, after that, the creator of it and executive producer Ken Mock, went on to create, America's Next Top Model and, all these different formats. But really, that was the first one where, a group of people lived in the same house and competed for a dream, a goal that they were aspiring to achieve. And as such, it's scripted reality, I think is what they call it now. And back then, there was no script. I mean, it was quite honestly, they turned the cameras on and ran them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the entire time we were filming. They would create events. Hey, we're going to take everybody out to the nightclub tonight. Hey, we're going to have everybody do this particular, function. We're going to take them on a trip. And they did those things to hope that then, they would have some situations occur, and then they could construct those into interaction and telling a story throughout the show. And, let the personalities of the people come out and be demonstrated on TV, not just in the ring, but outside the ring and, in these settings. And, it worked. I mean, they did a great job with it. It was a very entertaining show, but we were never handed a script or said, you need to do exactly this or say this exact thing at this time. It was basically just, they turned the cameras on and that was it. And they left. You were at the first time we did the first Tough Enough. We weren't supposed to, technically, we weren't supposed to speak or interact with the cameramen or the sound guys because of the hope that they'd become flies on the wall, that we would forget that they were there and they would just be like part of the furniture. And then the real interaction would take place and people wouldn't be so concerned about what they look like on camera or just putting it on for TV or anything like that. They would, you'd actually get to see the real events playing out, the real interaction playing out. And that was all, that was the hope that by not interacting with the camera guys or the sound guys, that they could get that done.
So I am a huge fan of wrestling, as we've talked about before, and that's obviously why I'm here doing this show. I personally did not watch Tough Enough, and I'll tell you why. It wasn't anything about the characters or the concept. I thought it was an awesome idea, but as I started to watch the first few episodes and get into it, it almost felt like, remember the guy that did the show and he wore the mask and he showed you how the magician does all the magic tricks? That's kind of how I felt. I didn't like watching the guys learning how to take the bumps. And there's one scene that's on the internet that's real popular from one of the seasons where Triple H gets in the ring and starts showing guys how to give and how to take a shot and how to snap as they're hitting them, and he's doing it and it looks great. And I've never been able to watch a Triple H match the same again because I know what he's doing and I'm watching it and that's kind of what I took away from it. Did anyone feel that way? Was there any of that behind the scenes from you or any of the other WWE guys that were involved saying it's like we're showing the world how we do what we do?
Oh yeah, there were a lot of guys. There was a big split in WWE. There were those that believed that was exposing too much and they were trying to, saying that it was pulling the curtain back too far when nothing could be further from the truth. Now, quite honestly, there was only one time that ever really occurred, and that was, I'm not speaking out of turn. I mean, it was that one time when Triple H came there and was, throwing guys. They had just, to be quite honest, they had only been working a week. I'd only been working with them for a week or something at that point in time, so to be able to throw a punch on one of them and expect them to know what to do was just nobody, I don't think, had told him or had him, smarten him up properly that was the
To
case.
how far along they were actually.
Yeah, in the fact that I never, if you paid attention, you actually watched the show. Like it's one thing for us to show them learning how to take a bomb, okay? Because it hurts. If you were to get in the wrestling ring, and it makes sense that you need to know how to land to protect yourself. So that's not exposing anything or demonstrating that the outcome's predetermined. Now I'm showing them nothing more than real wrestling holds and real wrestling moves. I'm not showing them cooperating doing it. I'm showing them how to protect themselves when they get hip tossed. And that was how I would always word it. How to protect themselves when they got suplexed. Here's how you legitimately do a suplex. Here's how you legitimately do an armbar. Here's how you legitimately use a headlock. And here's how you legitimately use it to take a person over. That's all real. Anybody that was watching it could try it at home and would be able to see that it actually physically does what I claim it does. I never showed them how to throw a punch, and especially never did it on camera. And because that's where things get a little kabuki-ish, and takes the cooperation, where you don't need to cooperate with me for me to take you off your feet.
Right.
You don't need to cooperate with me to hip toss you. You don't need to cooperate with me to arm drag you. You don't need to cooperate with me to waist lock you and take you down, or put holds on you. I can do all of that. You protecting yourself and going along with things makes it easier on you. So that didn't reveal anything within as far as the inner workings of the wrestling business are concerned. And a lot of that was closely edited. And to that end, John Gaborik, did a great job of supervising the editing to make sure that none of that did that. All it did was it showed the physical aspect of it and how hard it was on these kids, how hard they had to work, how beat up they were, even from just hitting the ropes and repeatedly and getting bruises. And all I did was show them how the technique of how to hit the ropes properly and safely, and then actually explained it. Because you have to understand, I taught them the same way I was taught. And I was taught at a time when they didn't smarten you up the minute you started learning how to take a bump. All they did was teach you how to take a bump and say, this is for you to protect yourself and allow yourself to be able to do this safely without breaking a bone or injuring you. But it's still going to hurt. Here's how you hit the ropes. Here's why you hit the ropes this way. Because if that top rope breaks, you being in this position protects you. If that middle rope breaks, you being in this position protects you. You always come off on your left foot. Why? Center of balance, footwork, timing, distance. Had nothing to do with cooperating with your opponent. It had everything to do with legitimately trying to protect yourself and being, and for fear that something could possibly happen where you could get injured.
Well, I'm not naive to the fact of the business is what the business is, and I just don't want to know how it's done. I don't want to see those. And I understand.
Hold on, Jarrett. You're not listening. You're hearing me, but you're not listening. To that end, at no point in time was that ever laid out other than the one time that you spoke about with Triple H. No other time on any part of that show was it ever, hey, you two are cooperating and you're doing it this way and you're doing it to achieve this. It was never, none of that was. It was all more about the physical aspects of it.
And I understand that, and I hear what you're saying. But for me, I don't want to know that guys go to a facility and train. Vince finds big mean plumbers in back alleys and invites them to the arena to come and fight other guys. That's where wrestlers come from.
No. And that would be the same as believing that boxers just walk off the street and start boxing and know how to box, or even back during the really early stages of UFC, that the MMA fighters didn't train for years on a particular discipline and then come to the tournament to fight and prove who was the better fighting style and the better fighter, or MMA guys these days, they just walk off the street. And that is the belief anymore as far as wrestling, because a lot of people, but going back to what we said about how easy it is to get in the business, they all have that attitude that all they have to do is just walk off the street, throw on a pair of boots and a pair of trunks, and hey, I'm a professional wrestler. And it takes so much more effort and time and work to be able to do it. You just can't do that.
Okay, for some of the gimmicks, but like the Undertaker, the $1 Million Man really found him working at a funeral home, this 6'10" monster, and recruited him for the WWF, right?
It's true.
Okay, all right, okay, good. And again, I know for some of the
and Ultimate Warrior came from whatever
whatever land he said. Some of those interviews are great too. One cool question that's come up a few times, and I guess I kind of would like to hear it too, because I know a little bit about it, but I guess I haven't heard the background of it. When, how, and why did Collar and Elbow brand start?
When was last July. How was a conversation between myself, my partners, Rod Hicks, and Dean Whitaker, David Hero, and I can't think of Wes's last name. I apologize, Wes. About the fact that how we were all fans of wrestling and how much we loved it, how passionate we were, and how nobody really had anything that kind of represented that. Kind of like football has its brand with Under Armour. Under Armour kind of represents football for you. People wear Under Armour and they go, oh yeah, they get it. Nike's kind of track and field and basketball. You can go on down the list, and wrestling I didn't feel like really had anything that kind of represented it. Tap Out, Vince McMahon's bought Tap Out, but Tap Out used to be representative of MMA and really encapsulated MMA. So we felt like we wanted to come up with something that kind of did that for wrestling, and we came up with Collar and Elbow, coming up with designs that represent that, and you can wear anywhere at any time and feel comfortable wearing and not feel like you're kind of weird because you got a grown man's face on your chest. And and if you're not a wrestling fan, it just looks like a cool street design. If you are a wrestling fan, you get it, and it's something that you share, and then it identifies you. And for those that want to see what I'm talking about, go to collarandelbowbrand.com. You can check out the designs. If you are interested in any of them, feel free to buy them. You can use the code SNOWMAN, take 10% discount off your purchase. If you are so inclined, you can round up your purchase to the nearest dollar, and that money is all contributed to Cauliflower Alley Club's charitable efforts for former wrestlers. And we have a new design that is out that's inspired by our veterans of the armed services and all the wonderful men and women who do whatever it takes to ensure that we still have the freedom and ability to do silly things like this podcast. And a portion of the proceeds all gets donated to the American Legion to help with their ongoing efforts which are extensive and amazing, helping U.S. veterans from all of the armed services. So,
plus it's an awesome looking shirt.
And they are. I mean, I'm kind of biased, but they really are. They're cool designs, and Dean does an amazing job designing them. And we use high quality T-shirts and clothing that's really soft and comfortable and fits well. And they're the ones that you kind of dig through and try to find because you want to wear them not just because of the design, because they just feel nice. So.
Absolutely. And if anyone that doesn't believe it, you can follow Al on Twitter at @TheRealAlSnow, and there's almost never a time he doesn't have a Collar and Elbow shirt on. Again, I imagine he gets a good deal on them, but he's always wearing them. So if he's got to wear it all the time, he's going to pick out something comfortable and something that looks nice.
Yeah, and that's quite honestly is because the reason I do wear them all the time is because I enjoy wearing them. They're nice. If I don't care if I own the company or not. If I don't enjoy wearing them, I just would be like, man, I'm going to find something else to wear today. So.
Well, I've got on my charcoal mirror tee today, Collar and Elbow, and I always put a Collar and Elbow shirt on when we're recording, just so I can get my uniform on. Of course, that military shirt is awesome, and the portion of the proceeds go to the American Legion. Right now, my current favorite collar and elbow shirt is the tackle and drop down, hip toss, and get it again. And the reason why I like that is because it's so
Oh
cool
yeah,
to know that that's a spot that you've probably caught a time or two in your career, right?
yeah, and it's a takeoff of what Dean was telling me this. It was takeoff of the Beatles. They did something similar like that, where it was tackle and drop down and hip toss and get it again, and that and in between everything was a play off of one of the albums that the Beatles had done.
Well, I love that, and I get a lot of questions about that, and we talked a little bit about that as well. You prefer to work heel. You get to call the match when you're working the heel, and that's something that you like to do. And I always love the art of watching a full wrestling match and never seeing a spot get called. You know, some guys do such a great job at covering it up. Is that one of the true arts, one of the things that you really have to learn when you're coming in is how to call those spots and when to call them without getting spotted in front of millions at home and thousands in the arena?
Oh yeah. You've got to really be able to, that's a skill that you have to develop all on its own. It definitely is not easy to do, and you've got to be really adept at it because any little thing will take that audience out of the moment and ruin it for them. It's no different than going and watching a movie, and that's why they spend literally millions upon millions of dollars producing movies. It's not just on the talent fees. It's on paying attention to every painstaking detail so that nothing, at no moment in time does anything happen while you're in that movie theater and it taking you out of that illusion of that world that's been created in that film and thus ruining it for you and your enjoyment. We've all been to movies that the acting has been fantastic, the special effects have been incredible, and then there's just that one little thing that happens or you spot, you notice, and it's not the same anymore. It's just not as good. It's just not as enjoyable. And again, that comes down to, investment of time, money, and effort because you're asking so much, from an audience to invest their time, money, and effort to come and pay to see it.
Now, was Al Snow, especially when you were working full time and on the road, were you a let's call it in the ring guy, or did you like to sit down beforehand and get an idea what was going to happen?
You do both. You do both. I mean, the belief that there was a point in time, and maybe there was, but I highly doubt it, that guys just completely called it in the ring is a fabrication. It's a fallacy. Everybody has, even the older veterans have called, things prior to going out. The difference was, and still is that, those guys were so adept and understood so much of what they were doing that, they would call A, B, C, D, E, and F. And then when they went to the ring, if any of that happened, great. If none of it happened, they didn't care. All they did was they based everything they did and all their decisions on where and what the crowd was doing and how they were reacting and if they were going in the direction emotionally that they wanted them to culminate at the finish. Those high spots are simply spots of moments in the match where the emotion goes higher in the direction you want it, and as a result, people, the older guys would come out and they'd say, okay, we're going to do A, B, C, D, and E, then on F we're going to go home, and they might come out and they might go Q, R, S, X, F, or they might go A, B, and then go F, or they might go A, D, C, A, B, F. Then in combination they might do. But they were open to and had the freedom and the creativity to simply react based on the situation. The problem that I have today is that the performers, they don't react and they don't interact anymore. They in the back, which is fine. They call their match, which is fine. But where I have a problem is that they call it. They separate. You go watch them mentally rehearse it or even walk through it physically by themselves, pantomiming it, step by step, turn by turn, every thing along the way. They get back together, they revise, they edit, they talk more, they leave, they go rehearse, they visualize it in their heads, and then they go out and they do it it has to be done exactly the way that they've rehearsed it in their minds, at the pace that they've rehearsed it in their minds. And as a result, there's never a moment where they emotionally react or interact either with each other, the referee, or the audience as if it's a legitimate, real contest. Like these things are actually taking place, because they're so consumed with, while they're doing spot A, they're trying to not forget spot B. And they're trying to do spot B, and they're trying to not forget spot C. So they're not reacting to or interacting when that is occurring anyway.
Absolutely. Well, we covered a bunch of questions and a bunch of stuff that everybody wanted to kind of know, and there's still a bunch of other stuff that we'll continue to talk about throughout the time that we have here. Again, I've heard some awesome feedback, and I think the show is really something that people are going to enjoy hearing a lot about what you've got going on. What's going on Al Snow's schedule? I know you said you're kind of cutting back on a lot of stuff to really kind of focus on OVW. You got any appearances coming up? What are you working on this next week here?
Well, I'm really going to be. I'm going to be at the OVW TV tapings at Davis Arena this Wednesday night to continue to build stories and characters. We do television tapings every Wednesday night at 4400 Shepherdsville Road here in Louisville, Kentucky. Doors open at 6. Show starts off at 7. We try to get everything done and out the door by 9:30 because it's a weeknight and we know that the kids have school. And then, yeah, I'm just, I'm really trying to focus on and devote as much as I can to that. If anything comes up, you can follow me at The Real Al Snow on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I've got updates out there all the time, where I'm going, what I'm doing.
Absolutely, and the buzz from OVW has been really strong. Make sure you give them a follow as well. Find Ohio Valley Wrestling on Facebook and on Twitter, or just visit ovwrestling.com. A lot of fun action going on over there. If you're a fan of wrestling, it's really neat, and like Al said, he's working hard on getting a lot of this stuff going to coming off of the big event from Saturday, going into a TV taping this week. Now, the TV airs what days in Kentucky?
It airs Saturdays at 11 a.m. and then we have a replay Saturday evenings as well. So they can catch it then, or they can go to YouTube and subscribe and watch it there, or to our website at ovwrestling.com and watch it there as well.
The website's awesome. It's got all the links to the roster and the links to the YouTube page. It's really a neat website that I was just on it last week, showing it to some of the guys, and it's really set up pretty cool. And yeah, be sure to follow OV Wrestling. Guys, make sure you check us out. We are on Twitter at The Real Snow Show. We're constantly updating different feeds. Nikolai's working hard behind the scenes to make sure that the podcast is available on all the places that folks like to listen to their podcasts. We've got it on iTunes and SoundCloud and Podbean and Google Play and YouTube, and it's all the same search. It's Inside Al Snow's Head. Please help spread the word. Visit collarandelbowbrand.com. Check out those t-shirts. Share your pictures of you in your Collar and Elbow Brand t-shirt. I don't know if you saw the picture of me and John Cena I shared.
Oh yeah,
on Twitter.
I did.
Yeah,
good to see him.
Yeah, that's what everybody. That's that damn gimmick of his, man. I don't understand it, but everybody keeps saying, "Hey, I see you," but I can't see Cena, and I just thought that son of a gun, man. He did it again.
He never takes a day off.
No, how could he? How could he? Long live the gimmick. I had a lot of fun again today, Al. Look forward to continuing this and keeping this rolling.
Me too.
Fans, if you have any questions, again, make sure you drop him a line on Facebook or on Twitter. Again, Al is everywhere at The Real Al Snow. We are The Real Snow Show on Twitter. On Facebook, it's Inside Al Snow's Head. Give us your questions, comments, whatever it is, and we'll be sure to get to it on the show.
I'm really excited to hear the feedback on this one.
As am I. Guys, until next time, thank you so much. Give us a follow. This was Inside Al Snow's Head. We'll see you guys next week.